everybody. My name is Nadja van Veer, co-founder of Dali Spaces, and I'm here with Sandra van Beest, founder and CEO of the Social Handshake. Welcome. And the purpose of this session is just to have an informal conversation. We would love to learn more about your journey from early stage idea to your first official day of business and a little bit beyond. You have invested your time and your energy in your business for over 3.5 years now, right? Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your company? What does it do and where does it stand now?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll just start with how the journey actually started then. And that's, I used to work in the NGO sector, in the charity sector. And then at one point, I really wanted to understand what the business world was all about. So I decided to switch. I became a strategy consultant. I did that for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that very gradually I started doing less and less to contribute to a better world. You know, I had a very busy job. I had kids, and somehow I just ended up doing nothing anymore. And that was quite confronting because I used to be the charity girl, right?
Yeah.
And I started talking about that with people around me, and I heard so many times, oh, I have that same feeling. I also want to do more. I want to contribute more. And then I thought, well, if so many people have that feeling that they want to do more, that's unmet potential for a better world. So we need to make it super easy for people to contribute more to a better world, basically. And one of the best ways to do that is through effective charities. So that was actually how the journey started. At that time, I was working at a big strategy consultant, BCG, Boston Consulting Group. And I had this idea in my mind. And what I noticed is that it became harder and harder to focus on my work because the idea was growing. Mm-hmm. I didn't quit my job overnight. I really spoke about it with a lot of different people from different backgrounds, from HR, from you know, how I'm going to do this financially, from legal. And then at one point I thought, let's give it a go. So that's how it started. And now, I mean, we founded the Social Handshake. A social handshake is a synonym for doing good. And our goal is to make doing good easy. And in the Netherlands, we provide payroll giving, which is a very simple way to support charities straight from your salary, and also with the tax benefits. Yeah. So it didn't exist yet in the Netherlands, and now it's here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And then behind the platform, you have a number of different charities that you then pass on the donation to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can choose themselves, you know, they can pick a charity which is close to their hearts, which is very important. So some people care about sustainability. Some may, for example, care about refugees. So they can really select charities that are close to their hearts. Of course, we have agreements with all these charities and looked at transparency, efficiency, effectiveness for all the charities on our platform.
Yeah. And you mentioned also that kind of the idea existed not only from yourself, from your heart, where you said, I want to do more, but also you talking to other people that want to do more. Yeah. In addition to that, was there a point of time that you decided, you know, oh, yes, this is a product that's really going to provide a solution to a problem? Is there anything else other than those conversations?
No, I think, so I think one of the key moments was probably when I was speaking with HR people, because I knew at one point this had to become a secondary benefit, which meant that we had to go through HR. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to find out, is this something that they would buy and pay for to provide for their employees? Yeah. So I think that was a critical moment, because then I found out, okay, we can make a business out of this. Yeah. So we are a company, and companies who provide payroll giving for their employees, they pay us. And that means that 100% of donations can go to charities. Yeah. So we need to find out that was a good model first. Yeah.
So what I'm gathering is that you hold very intimate conversations with kind of your target group, your customer clients potentially. Yeah. Did you do that before you launched the business, or was it during the process?
Yeah, so I think that maybe had I not had such a busy job, I might have waited a bit longer. Mm-hmm. But I noticed this idea and this drive was growing, and I couldn't find any time to do this next to my job. So what I did was, at one point I decided, okay, I'm going to give this a chance. I'm going to give myself half a year to make sure that I have a vision of how I can actually also earn a living with this. I can cover my own costs for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
So I knew I had a certain period of time where I had to have like a plan, when I had to get first investors on board, etc., to make this a reality. And I gave myself a little more than half a year to do that. And I think it was around Christmas that things were looking good, and said, okay, we're going to launch the business.
Yeah. And looking back, do you think that was the right call to make? Was 6 months long enough? Was it too long?
Well, no, it was definitely not too long. I think the honest answer is it always takes longer than you expect. It always takes more time. And now looking back, I mean, there were still some really big barriers that we had to jump through, and investors already started investing to cross. So, I mean, thank you for having the faith in us and our business that we're going to cross those barriers as well, because that was really quite a journey. So I think we're also, I'm not quite sure if lucky is the right word, but we're fortunate also have investors on board from an early stage who really believed in the idea that we can make this to a success.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And before you even decided to take those 6 months to kind of start working on the business, was there anything before that was kind of holding you back from, making the leap?
Absolutely. I mean, I had a well-paying job. I have a mortgage. I had at that time 2 small children. Now they're in primary school, but then they were still really small. Yeah. So it was a huge leap of faith. But my husband had a stable job, so that made it a bit easier. Little did I know that 2 months later, my husband would quit his job as well and become an engineer as well. I mean, and since I had done it, there was no way I was going to say, no, you're not allowed to do that. But so those first few years, you find out that you can really, have a pretty good life with 1/3 of your income. But it was a leap of faith, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things that I also did, though, that I talked with recruiters, and I knew how difficult it would be to get me a new job in the field that I was working in already. And I mean, I knew that would not be hard. So I also thought, okay, I'm going to have this leap of faith. If everything fails in 6 months' time, I'm going to become a strategy consultant at some other organization. So I had a backup plan.
Yeah. No, and that's and I recognize that, and I think that on the moment you have built a corporate career and you're confident that if things go sour with your business, then you could always go back and do something and find a job quickly. I think that also makes it probably a lot easier.
Yeah,
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah,
absolutely, huge difference. Yeah. And I also noticed that a lot of entrepreneurs work that way. Yeah, it's always a leap of faith, right? But what I also really liked is that how many people said, oh, congratulations, so cool that you're giving this a shot, because I think there's so many people who are dreaming or thinking or have a great idea and something is holding them back, and probably scared, or I don't know what reason, and I think that was me as well for some time, but like judging from the reactions I had, I thought that there must be so many people who also have this brilliant idea and just need to take the leap of faith.
Take a leap. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. No, and I think, I mean, your move to kind of stop your job and really focus 100% on the new business is a bold move. Not everybody will dare to take it. And you can also kind of envision that you start with working part-time and doing it on the side. Have you considered that? What kind of benefits did you see from that, or the other way, just focusing 100% on your business?
But I think maybe had that been a possibility at my job, I might have done that.
Okay.
Because I can absolutely recognize that, that's a lot more stable way to go at it, right? And also some things just take time. So it's not just how fast you run yourself. Some things just take time. I mean, especially in fintech, how long it took to get a third-party payments bank account, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would have been a good idea. It just wasn't a possibility for me.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I also had in my mind was my sister. She's also an entrepreneur. And she said investors like to invest in founders who go at it full time. So I also had that in my back of my mind, that at least from an investor perspective, it was appreciated to go for it full time.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, you also kind of consulted with fellow entrepreneurs even before you actually took the jump. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
That's I think also a very valid piece of advice to give, you know, to the listeners, that that is something, you know, that's such a valuable insight to have, you know.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I have been lucky. I have a sister who's a tech entrepreneur, and I have quite some entrepreneurs in my like friends and surroundings. But I also just sometimes, if I thought somebody was like a cool entrepreneur, or I went to these entrepreneurial places like Impact Hub where there were other people, and I mean, everybody is willing to help you or think along. Yeah. And you also have many entrepreneurs reaching out to me, just saying from, hey, I have an idea. Would you mind like having a talk of 30 minutes just to like bounce back this idea? Yeah, I think that's always a great way to go at it. I mean, it worked for me, and I also know a lot of entrepreneurs approaching me now from the same perspective. So I would definitely recommend that. Yeah.
And you were apparently you weren't shy to approach kind of entrepreneurs, even if you didn't know them, just to reach out to them. And I think that also the same kind of applies on your funding journey, right? Can you tell us a little bit more on how you did that and how you approached that?
Well, I think the first thing to know is I was shy about it. I was very shy about it, but I also had my sister in the back of my mind saying, yeah, you just need to overcome that. Otherwise, you're going to go nowhere. I mean, you have to talk about your idea. You have to go forward. Otherwise, you're not going to get the feedback that you need. So, I mean, it was super daunting. And I remember one of the first times I talked about my idea and people were laughing about it. I think, oh shit, but I wasn't telling the story right at the time. And it was still at the experimental phase. So you're not always going to have a warm welcome. So it's also like some faith, but you do notice that the more you talk with people about it, the better it gets. So that's, your other question was about the funding journey, right? So what I did, well, first I looked at, what do we want to do? Do we want to become a business, or do we want to become an NGO? Because I mean, we're in the middle of it. We decided we want to become a business. We want to grow, and the more we grow, the more impact we make. So I like that idea. But also from the very early stage, just to discover this idea, we also looked at subsidies, and often there are subsidies for startups. So definitely take that route. And then we made a business plan. We signed up for a program where you could win something, and I mean, we didn't even come close to winning anything, but it did help us in understanding how they would look at my business plan. Courses, and that was the whole purpose for me anyway. So then I sharpened my business plan, and in this case, there was a sustainability pitch event by ABN AMRO. And I just thought I'd give it a try. So I sent in my business plan, and then they invited me, and I ended up being one of the 5 startups who could pitch at the event. And that was how we got our first offers on the table. So that was a really cool way to get started. And of course, it wasn't like a large amount of money, but it was just enough really to get us going. And then further on in the journey, of course, I was talking to funds. We were too small and too early stage for that. But what really helped us is I just started talking to them anyway, because I wanted to know, what do I need to do to get at the level that I can actually apply for your fund? And actually, through talking to these people about what do I need to do to get there, I was talking to somebody from Velocity FinTech. I knew we didn't meet the criteria. But I just want to find out, what does the fintech world look like? What criteria will you be using? I want to explore my idea. And it turned out they were very enthusiastic about it and ended up investing. So it's not always that you have to meet all the criteria. And it's just important to have a talk anyway, even if it's just too early stage, because it will always help you along the journey.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think you really mentioned a very, very big potential pitfall for many women around us. No matter whether they're entrepreneurs, they're looking at, do I meet all the criteria before they do something? Do they first kind of make sure that they have everything in place before they start? Preparation. But what I hear from your story is really like, trial by error. Just do it. And you don't know what happened, and now indeed you have funding from a company that you never expected it from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And you always get great feedback. I mean, even if they're not willing to invest, you always get feedback and learn what are their concerns. And that makes you be able to tackle those concerns when you have the next conversation. So just start talking with people about it.
Yeah. No, that's great. And looking back, last 3 years, is there anything you would have done differently with the experience and knowledge that you have now? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think it would have been good for me. I'm not quite sure if it would have been good for me, but I would always be disappointed when something would take longer, And I think what I definitely would have done differently would be celebrate the milestones that you do achieve. Because it's always, as soon as you hit a milestone, what's next? You look at the next phase. And then you feel like you're always running behind. So for example, we need to strike a deal with the Dutch tax authorities. And clearly, I did not understand how that would work. We had brilliant help from PricewaterhouseCoopers and from De Brouw, but it took a lot longer than we expected. It took almost 1.5 years, which meant that I couldn't go into business as soon as I would have liked. But I mean, this was also just a reality that I hadn't realized. And yeah, maybe I could have talked about this and would have understood how long this would take in advance. But then again, maybe I wouldn't have taken the shot because I would have thought, oh, it's going to take too long. No, I can't do it. So sometimes it's also good to be oblivious about these things. It's fully ignorant sometimes.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. And, apart from doing things different, tell us a little bit more about any other hurdles that you have faced, just overlooking, apart from the business that you're in, just starting a business and growing a business and going into that. As Martha would have called it, your fuck ups. Anything you can share on that side?
Well, I think the for me, it felt like a fuck up thing with the Dutch tax authorities, because I thought we had signed. Yeah, I mean, we had everything signed by Amsterdam. And then it turned out we needed to go to the national Dutch tax authorities, and all of a sudden, like, the whole world was open again, and they could just dismiss it.
Yeah.
So for me, that I mean, and also I already had investors on board saying, "Hey, we've got this agreement," but it turned out it wasn't on the level that it needed to be at. So I mean, luckily they they stood by us.
Yeah.
Which is great.
How did you manage that? Sorry, how did you manage that with the investors afterwards?
I was just completely honest with them.
Yeah.
And I think, just completely honest. I always have been. And for me, it was a surprise, but it was also a surprise for PricewaterhouseCoopers. So then I thought, okay, if it's a surprise for them, I mean, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I would do differently is that I would start testing sooner. So, and that's maybe, I'm not quite sure if that's maybe a feminine thing, but I was maybe a little bit too academic. And I want to have research and want to have like solid, and I could prove it with like literature. But the real reason to find out is just talking to people and approaching and asking. And so, and I think, I mean, I do think we could have saved some time had we started talking to people and actually, like, this is our product, what do you think?
Yeah.
Start doing that sooner. So that short cycle approach, make it even shorter.
Yeah. I mean, but I think looking at your product, it's a bit difficult, right? You're in a chicken egg kind of model. On the one hand, you want to have the charities, you need to have the charities in order to go to the HR people, but for, you need to have also the companies and the employers in order to go to the charities. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I realized we need to have the charities first, because you can't have an employer say, okay, so we're going to do this, but we don't know which charity it's going to be yet. So we really did need to have the charities first. And I think that seeing that I come from the charity sector was probably an advantage there, because we really needed them to take a leap of faith as well, right? And it was a little bit easier with the smaller charities, but also some people already knew me from back then, trusted me. And I think once UNICEF was on board, that was a big thing, because then all the other charities were like, okay, if UNICEF's on board, probably it's solid. And now really the tables are turned, because in the beginning we needed to go to charity and say, hey, please, do you want to be one of the charities on the platform? We're not live yet, we don't have the platform yet, but it's going to look like this and it's going to be awesome. And now I think we have more than 100 charities at this point who have asked, can we please be on the platform? And we don't have space for all of them. So now really we're seeing the tables are being turned there.
No, great. And at what stage did you hire your first employee? I mean, I can imagine that's another milestone and a risk that you're taking, because you're creating additional costs. When did that happen, and how did you decide?
So I had a few people helping me out next to their job already, because they believed in the idea. And I also had some people who said, oh, they would offer their help, and then they would help for one day and then be gone again. And that is often quite a long time investment. So I found out more time investment. But we did our first hire after we had our first funding. Because, so we did, and we also had some commitments of people saying, oh, when you will get funding, we'll come on board. So we could present like a good team, just not of them were all on board yet. Take it step by step. Absolutely.
Maybe it's also interesting to share where you stand now with the company. Over the last 3 years, we've kind of talked about the process, but where do you stand now?
All right. So I think at this point, there's like 25 companies who provide payroll giving. Let me just start that we were launched in December of 2020. Worst timing ever, because it was just before the lockdown, and all HR people were all of a sudden, so people are going to work from home again. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do it? So we heard quite a lot of times, interesting idea, please come back to us like in half a year. So the beginning wasn't great, but it's really cool to see then in spring, these companies actually were coming back to us saying, hey, it's looking better now. And, sustainability on the lift, we recognize that, employees care about more than just like a gym membership or a canal cruise. The purpose is important for employees as well. So then it started to get going. And now we're just noticing it's going faster. So sometimes for the larger companies, it takes quite long. But we also have the companies coming to us now, which is really cool to see that they weren't even on a list to approach, and they're calling us or saying, hey, can you give us a demo? We like this.
That's great.
But we need to grow a whole lot more. Always, of course, that's looking forward again, always looking at the next.
No, but definitely, I think, looking where you are right now, and the funding that you have received, and people approaching you on both sides, I think, that's definitely a milestone to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I think throughout this conversation, you've definitely gave some, great pointers, and I hope it was useful for some of the listeners. Is there any other, remainder tips that you would want to give to women who are considering starting their own business?
Considering taking the leap. I think, well, it's sometimes it is difficult to have faith in yourself, right? And I think definitely what is needed is grit, but it's also okay to not have faith in yourself every day. I have days when I feel on top of the world, and I have days when I think, oh my God, you know?
What am I doing?
Yeah, and then I think it always helps. My husband always says, how do you eat an elephant? I know it's a weird thing to say, but it is one bite at a time, because you can't eat the whole elephant. So whenever I'm feeling like a little bit, oh, how am I going to do this? Or when I have like a little bit less faith, he's like, okay, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and just keep walking.
Yeah.
Just keep walking, and as long as you keep on going forward, you'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these are things that help me to go.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's really great, and it's also great to hear about your supporting own community that you have built with people surrounding you, helping you, and that's really, really great to hear.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for sharing your story, and I hope it was useful for the listeners. And if anybody comes with questions, I'll definitely reach out to you if they want to hear more.
Sure.
And for everybody listening, if you're interested in follow-up events and next things, please follow our social media channels, Dali Spaces, or go to our website to sign up for our community, dalispaces.eu. We're still in beta phase, but we're hoping to launch soon. Thanks so much for your time, Sandra.